We begin on Capitol Hill, where confirmation hearings for President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet picks are ramping up today, with several top positions under the spotlight. Attorney General nominee Pam Bondi, her hearing is in full swing. Let's dip in for just a bit.
U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi will restore law and order to the nation. She'll put Americans' interests first and make the nation a better and safer place. I urge every single member of this committee to support my friend Pam Bondi, and I look forward to voting for her confirmation soon on the Senate floor and help her get to work for the American people. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the committee. It is an honor for me and a privilege to introduce Pam Bondi, President Trump's nominee to be the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I have known and worked closely with Pam for years, and I'm glad to call her a friend. When Pam was nominated by President Trump, my reaction was, this is a home run. As many of us are, I was only to be outdone by Senator Graham, who described the nomination as a grand slam, touchdown, hole-in-one, ace, hat trick, slam dunk, Olympic gold medal pick, and he's right. As the letter joined by more than 100 former Justice Department officials put it, quote, it's all too rare for senior Justice Department officials, much less attorneys general, to have such a wealth of experience in the day-to-day work of keeping our communities safe, end quote. Pam exemplifies and personifies the Department of Justice's mission to uphold the rule of law, to keep our communities safe, and to protect our rights and liberties as Americans. Pam has distinguished herself in her career in public service that has taken her from her small-town upbringing in Temple Terrace, Florida, to a hearing before this esteemed committee. After attending the University of Florida and Stetson University College of Law, she started her career as a local prosecutor in Hillsborough County, Florida. As a local prosecutor for nearly 2 decades, Pam kept her community safe, prosecuting violent criminals, drug dealers, those who had threatened the local community, and those who stood in opposition to the rule of law. Pam's fellow Floridians then elected her to serve as Florida's Attorney General, where she was the first woman in state history elected to that office. As a former state Attorney General myself, I can vouch for the deep experience that Pam Bondi has developed from serving in that role. As the chief law enforcement official in her state, she worked with local prosecutors to fight crime, work to protect our constitutional rights.
All right, we're just dipping in there as Pam Bondi begins her hearing for Attorney General. I want to bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane to talk more about this. Scott, as you know, Pam Bondi has quite a high level of favorability among the Republican majority for the nation's top prosecutor. So what kind of tough questions, if any, can we expect? Because even some Democrats, I'm guessing, will have, it won't be as controversial as the hearing that we saw yesterday for Pete Hegseth, but still tough. So what do we expect?
The Democrats have shown their roadmap through what Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois said a few minutes ago. They're going to question her on her role in trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. She was a close ally of Donald Trump during that process between Election Day and Inauguration Day 2021. She was part of the effort to overturn the results in Pennsylvania. She's going to be asked about that. I suspect she'll also be pressed, Vlad, as to whether she still believes these false claims of the rigging of the 2020 election and her thoughts on January 6th. How aligned is she with Donald Trump on denying the U.S. Capitol riot? These may not detour or derail her nomination, but Democrats want her to speak to this today as they prepare for the next Trump administration. This is custom, Vlad, to have 2 introducers for nominees. You first heard from Rick Scott, the junior senator from Florida. Eric Schmitt, who was a former attorney general of the state of Missouri, is now the senator from the state of Missouri. Is actually introducing her from the dais because he's a member of the Judiciary Committee. It's going to be a long hearing, Vlad. There's one particular questioner I'm waiting for at the very end. California Senator Adam Schiff, new to the Senate. He was part of that House January 6th Select Committee. He investigated the insurrection. He has a chance to ask her questions about that after she takes questions after her opening statement, which appears poised to begin.
All right. Senator Schmitt, he's the one, Scott, who yesterday during that hearing for Pete Hegseth talked about incompetence in the military, but spelled military wrong. Is that the senator you're referring to?
Eric Schmidt is one of the most closely aligned Trump allies in the U.S. Senate. His name was actually floated early in the process as a possible candidate to be Attorney General, but no surprise, he introduced Pam Bondi. They are very close as former state attorneys general.
Interesting. Let's listen in to Pam Bondi is what I'm being told from the control room. Scott, let's listen.
Opportunity to meet with almost all of you, and I greatly appreciate that. I'm grateful to President Trump and to this committee for your consideration to be the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I would not be here without my family. And if you can bear with me for just a moment, a lot of them have made a very long trip, and I wrote them all down so I don't forget anyone. My beautiful mother, who I wouldn't be here, a retired kindergarten teacher, would not be here without my mom. As of a week ago, it was 12 years since we lost my dad to leukemia. Feels like 12 days. My amazing husband, John, and his two incredible girls, Collins and Finley. Collins is a senior at University of Florida, and I think all of you on this committee will be very happy to know Finley is in cybersecurity. There's a third who is traveling abroad. I wish she could be here. My amazing father-in-law, David, my sister, Beth, my brother-in-law is home with my niece, my nephews, if you could just raise your hand, Evan, Jake.
All right, Pam Bondi there preparing for her confirmation hearing, shouting out members of her family, as each nominee typically does. Let's go back to Scott MacFarlane, who's tracking developments on the Hill for us. Scott, let's talk about Marco Rubio. Seems to be a fairly non-controversial choice for Secretary of State. What's the vibe with Democrats and Marco Rubio? I mean, I know that he's a former never-Trumper turned big-time Trump supporter, but what is his relationship with Democrats in the Senate?
This is a whole different dynamic, this particular choice, Vlad. Imagine going for a job interview at a new company across the country. Then imagine going for a job interview in your own office with your own colleagues and your own boss. That's the dynamic Marco Rubio faces because he is seeking the confirmation of his own colleagues in the U.S. Senate, some of whom he's built some particularly strong relationships with. He's actually been a top Republican on one of the more bipartisan panels, the Senate Intelligence Committee. Easy to form bipartisan relationships there. He's going to benefit from that during this process. He will sit before the senators over whom he has seniority in some cases. This will be arguably or potentially, Vlad, the lowest stress, lowest drama of all Senate confirmation hearings this week.
All right, and we'll be watching. Scott MacFarlane for us. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you.